Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 159 of the Dynasty Junkies. Feels like knocking the cobwebs off on this thing. This is kind of fun. It's your host, Andrew Hall at Andrew Hall FF. This is the new season. We're kind of launching a new season. We had a little bit of time off. With me in the B chair is the one and only Rocky Petrella. How are you, Rocky?
That is me. We are back. It's nice to see you guys again. Drew, we had on the last show we did before we took this little break. I'm happy to have him back here. You'll throw it to him in a second, I'm sure. But and also great to see you again, Andrew. It's been way too long. I'm happy to be back talking about the NFL season. We're a quarter of the way in, guys. It's crazy.
Yeah, we're really rocking and rolling now, and you already hit the note on the head here. We're looking at a new season, a new start, a new NFL season, right? All that kind of stuff. So we've got Drew Prawel on the show now. This is going to be our new third co-host, with Scott still being at MIA and kind of unable to play. But Drew, we're welcome to have you. Welcome to the show.
Good to be here. Excited to chop it up a little bit and hear some of what you guys are thinking about.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting one. We're kind of, like I said, knocking off the cobwebs, kind of getting our muscles back on the podcasting. You know, we took off a few weeks there. It's always nice to kind of refresh, let your brain reset. I enjoyed the time away. I'm guessing all of us had, we all have real life going on. It's always nice. And with all the lineups I had to set, it was kind of nice to just focus on NFL for a little while. But now we're like Rocky said, we're a quarter of the way through. So this is an interesting time to be alive. But no, I am very much looking forward to this season. I think this is a crazy week to kind of start back into things. And again, being that we missed the first, 3.5 weeks technically, because you were here for that one game, there's a lot of news to get through. And I think maybe that's where we'll start with this tonight. The first thing I put on here, the one question I keep asking myself is Jonathan Taylor going to play after all of this 4 weeks on the pup and like all the arguing with the Colts and like not being happy and not getting paid? Like, do we think he's going to play? I think he's going to play, but Rocky, what do you think? I don't know.
He's making it sound like he is. He finally talked. I think
Right?
was it today or yesterday?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it doesn't seem like he's still entirely happy. I think they asked him if he's happy to be with the Colts or something like that, and he's just like, I'm here now. But I think he had a full participation in practice. They said, I think if not this week, definitely next week he's going to play, and he needs to play. If they don't trade him, he needs to play because he can't take off the whole year. Now, will he play the whole rest of the season? That's another question. But he needs, I think, to get at least 6 games in to get into free agency. So I think we're going to get at least, at the very least, 6 weeks of him. And I kind of think it might be starting this week because from what I've seen and heard, he looks fine health-wise. So like you said, if he's got to get 6 games in, he might as well get him in now, give himself a chance to showcase himself. So maybe somebody does trade for him before the deadline.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, though, that, with the pup and like physically unable, there was this whole worry if he was injured or not. And that seems to be kind of not true, right? Like he's kind of coming right back in and launching in. Drew, what do you think? Is Taylor going to play? Is he a lock?
I mean, nothing's guaranteed, but I would definitely say it looks that way. I mean, he came out and said he feels 100% right. His ankle's right and he's ready to go. So, will he, how much of a load will he get this week if he's starting in this week? But yeah, I mean, he can only help his situation by showing that he's still got it. So I would imagine in his own self-interest, he's got to put some stats out there soon.
No, that's kind of where my mind goes too. Is like it makes no sense for him to not play, right? Like this makes zero sense to me that he would just sit out. That makes, I mean, you have to play as running backs. You pretty much always have. You have nowhere else to play. This is it. So I think he plays. The next question that kind of is related to that is he any good? Right? Like, does he come out and dominate? I mean, I could see him being a little rusty, right? Like that could be a little odd. I mean, I'm starting him if I have him. Let's put it that way. Like I'm kind of launching him right back into lineups. Rocky, are you on the same page there? Like, are you hesitating at all in any leagues?
As long as he is healthy, I think he actually will be pretty good. Shane Steichen, the head coach there, was formerly with the Eagles. He knows how to set up an offense with a running quarterback and a good run offense. The Eagles had, even without the quarterback, they had some of the best rushing attacks in the league, and that was with Miles Sanders, who was nowhere near the player that Jonathan Taylor is. And it definitely, if Richardson is playing well, and maybe they do some RPO stuff and all that stuff, but a lot of times, I mean, rookie quarterbacks aren't always ideal for other skill players in fantasy, but running quarterbacks can often open up holes for the running back because they're keying on Richardson. And like I said, doing RPOs, they'll might key on Richardson, leaving a wide open hole for Jonathan Taylor, who's clearly going to take advantage of that kind of thing. So I kind of think, especially because of Steichen, and we've actually seen a little bit. I mean, part of it's just having a new offensive coordinator for the Eagles. I think just an adjustment period, but it's definitely not that they've been bad on offense, but it's been a little different this year. They haven't been quite as explosive. I think a lot of that is just that Steichen actually is very good at what he does, and I expect that. We've seen it with the Colts already. I mean, Richardson has played. He had the concussion, so he's only played a couple games here, but he's looked really good. So
yeah, I think Taylor's going to help Richardson a lot. I think that offense is going to look really good. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's going to be the way to go with this. And then I guess the last question, I'll kick it to you on this one, Drew, related to Jonathan Taylor, is like, what is he worth right now in Dynasty? Like, if you have Taylor on your roster, are you looking to move him? Are you looking to buy him? Like, I guess I'm just kind of curious with all of this stuff that's going on with Taylor. Is he somebody that you're actively trying to get or no? What do you think, Drew?
Yeah, if I've got him, I'm holding him. I'm waiting for his value to rebound. I think as soon as he has a couple of good, not even a couple of good full games, but if he shows a couple of flashes, doesn't even have to be 100% to where he was a couple of years ago when he had that record-breaking season. I think your value that you'll get back for him for contenders will be really good. I'm not really going in. I'll kick the tires a little bit. I'm not sure what I would give to get him. I heard somebody, I forgot which one I was listening to today, but somebody mentioned they gave up Jacobs and what they think is going to be a late first to a team that was a little bit shaky about Taylor. So I'd be kind of in that space. Jacobs hasn't really taken off this year yet, but he started slow last year, so you're taking a little bit of a risk there. But yeah, I'm not. I think some people are talking about 2 firsts. That's a little bit rich for me at this point for a running back there. But again, if he's the piece that's going to put me over, if I've had great trades, or maybe maybe I picked up a Nico Collins and or a Puka, and I've got some spare change lying around, and I can flip those guys into something like a Jonathan Taylor, I'm certainly looking to do that.
I'm with Drew. I can't go to 2 firsts.
Yeah,
I am still a little worried. I mentioned that again. If this does go on and he really does want out of there, I'm very worried we could see a situation sort of like what it seems happened with Lamar last year, where he gets an injury and then he just slow plays it and doesn't come back because he doesn't. As long as he gets his 6 games in, that's all he needs. So I do worry that something like that could happen where he doesn't play the whole year. The slightest, hangnail might keep him out because he doesn't want to risk getting seriously injured. So I definitely can't go to 2 first. I would do a first plus something. Jacobs is not bad. I might want to try and aim a little lower than Jacobs in a first if I'm buying, but I don't think that's too bad of an offer, especially given the start Jacobs had gotten off to.
Well, I think this is probably the worst week to buy Taylor, right? I mean, he's finally coming back. He's finally going to play. I don't think anybody that's held on to Taylor this long is going to give him at a discount right now. You might be overpaying a little, and you don't really know what Taylor you're going to get. It could be a very disgruntled and angry and run hard Taylor. It could be, let me just put in the bare minimum for 6 games and get my paycheck and get out of here, Taylor. We don't know, honestly. There's a lot of speculation, I guess, as to whether he's going to be good or bad and all this, but I don't know. It feels wonky to me, I guess. It just feels a little odd to like buy him right now. So I'm kind of with you, Drew. I'm holding. If I have him, I'm fine to hang on.
I do think if he's on the
actively getting.
I was just going to say, I do think if he's on the field, he's going to be pretty good.
Yeah,
because of what I said earlier about Steichen, and because, like I think Drew said, it's in his self-interest to look great. Like, I don't think he's going to dog it because just to get the games in. Because if he really wants out of there, it's in his best interest to even if he doesn't think he's going to get traded. I mean, he's got to sign a new contract next year. Then, so you don't want to come off a lackluster season where you maybe don't play the whole year after the 4 games, and have bad stats when you're on the field.
I completely agree. Yeah, and I guess we'll use that as a pivot in a sense to the other player I definitely want to talk about, and I put it on the show sheet, but I'm going to skip him for a second, and talk about Puka, because Drew, you mentioned Puka Nakua. We were talking about what are we valuing Taylor at? I mean, what are we valuing Puka at in Dynasty? I guess, Rocky, I'll kick it to you first. I mean, have you seen any trades, or have you, I guess, figured anything out where you want to go get Puka? Like, what are you willing to pay for that guy right now?
It's funny you ask if I've seen any and about paying, because I actually did one, but I sold Puka.
What'd you get for him?
I sold him for what looks like a mid to late first. This was actually, I think, before this, after week 3. And to me, it's a somewhat contending team. I look like a playoff team, but maybe not one of the top ones. And it's not going to help my run, because I do think Puka is going to not keep up what he did in those first, handful of games, because that's ridiculous. He's got like the most receptions ever for the first 4 games of a career, or something like that. But but I do think he's going to be solid even with Cup back. I think there's room for the both of them. Puka's played a lot on the outside, and Cup plays a lot in the slot, so they can definitely coexist. And I just thought the value was too good. I mean, it's a guy I drafted in the I think it was probably the 4th round. I got Puka, and I'm getting a first for him. And again, I'm not sure that team's going to win a title anyway. So I just give me a mid to late first. I will take that as a seller. As a buyer, I think I would go, if I feel very certain it's like I'm a solid contender, it's a 10, 11, 12. I think I would do that, because, again, I know Cup's coming back, but you don't start he's not going to keep this up, but you don't start a career like this. And I just can't believe he's just going to fall off the face of the earth because Cooper Kupp now is in the offense. So I think he's going, I think if you show this much this early, you're going to be a good player in the league. And that's all I can ask for out of a late first. So yeah, I would pay a late first.
What about you, Drew?
I actually just turned down a late first in a 14 team. It's actually the one that we're in together, Rocky and Sleeper there, the classiest Dynasty League. Because I'm kind of, my team there, I feel like is similar to what you're describing. I'm borderline contender, probably a little bit more of a pretender, because I don't have a lot of high-end firepower with, really high ceiling. I've got a lot of really solid players that probably beat the average score each week, but so I'm going to hang on to him here and see kind of what happens. And like you said, I think I picked him up in maybe the late 3rd in a 14-team rookie draft. Yeah. And I'm okay hanging on to that, because I've still got enough other picks for next year that I'm okay to miss out on that right now. But like you said, I think he's going to be fine long term, and Cooper Kupp's not going to be there forever either. Yeah. Neither is Matthew Stafford, for however much he's helping kind of buoy his value here and get him a running start. But yeah, I agree with you, Rocky. If he starts off this well, it'd be hard for him to just fall off the face of the earth. But we've seen stranger things as well, where the context of where you are matters, and if he's just got the right setup now, it's possible I could look back in 8 weeks and be kicking myself for not taking that later first right now. So I see the matchup this week, so I think I'm just waiting to see if I can get one more good week out of him and maybe squeeze a little bit more, because I'm greedy like that sometimes.
And you mentioned that Stafford and Kupp won't necessarily be there forever. One's a good thing, one's a bad thing for Puka. But Sean McVay probably can be there as long as he wants. So I think that's going to help him. I mean, if there's, whatever you may think of him as a head coach, they've fallen off since the Super Bowl and all that. The man can design an offense, and clearly design one for his number one receiver. So if Cooper Kupp does leave and Puka becomes the number one guy and McVay is still there, I have a lot of faith he's going to look really good.
It was interesting, actually. I was trying to trade for him in my home 1QB Dynasty League, and we got to, offering different players and putting in different things and all this. And I tried to see if I could get Kendre Miller in addition to Puka, and I was sending Debo and I think a second or something like that. And he was like, I don't know. I took Kendre in the first, so I really like him. And I was like, okay, that's fair. I was like, so do you value Puka as a 4th? Because that's where you took him. And he goes, no, Puka's more like a first round. I'm like, okay, so wait a minute. Hang on. Like, so you're just valuing both at their peak value and saying, like, Kendre Miller, I think, has gone down since the draft and kind of not really worth a late first. I don't think a lot of people would be shocked to hear that, But he's like, well, no, Kendry's worth a first and Puka's now worth a first. I'm like, well, you can't have it both ways, man. Like, what are you doing here?
It's
So I
funny.
thought that was
I don't
really
think
funny.
in a lot of leagues Miller was even drafted in the first.
Well, in
Like,
a one
I think
QB,
it's
it makes some more
one
sense.
QB. I
right?
missed
Yeah.
one QB. I'm sorry.
Yeah, one QB like it makes a little more sense, right?
Yeah.
But still, like Puka was 408. And I'm like, okay, so are we taking draft values? I'm fine with that. Like, okay, so he's worth the 408. That was the draft value. That was what you said. You would like, oh, but no, it's now value. Oh, but you're not looking at now value. So it's really funny.
Yeah.
I think that happens a lot, especially with rookies, because some of these players, it's been 4 weeks, but they haven't had a chance to break out, right? Puka broke out. Puka is out. He is breaking records. He is an NFL stud, right? And I think there's a lot of places in a lot of leagues and things like that where people just don't know how to value him at all. They're like, what do I do with this guy? Because there's a lot of questions. Like you were just saying, Rocky, if Cup comes back, what does that mean for Puka? So we don't know. And I guess that's really where we're going to land that one is just, I don't know, whatever you can get for him. I personally would be fine with a mid first. I would sell for a mid first. I think I would probably even buy for a mid first. I feel like that value feels about right. But to Drew's point, I am a little greedy and I do like to get a little more if I can here and there, right? Like, why not? But yeah, I don't think that there's any negative in declining that either, right? If you feel like it's not worth that, then it's not worth that. And I think Puka is one of those people that has a wide variety of options and values. So that makes it kind of fun. The other player I wanted to mention, which is on the show sheet, was Joe Burrow, my boy, obviously over here on the calendar, Joe Burrow. I'm a big fan of Joe Burrow. I drafted a lot of Joe Burrow. I traded for a lot of Joe Burrow. I mean, Joey B's my guy. He gets the contract and puts up dud after dud after dud. It just feels like that one game, the 2 touchdowns to Higgins was his only really good game. Everything else has been brutal. I mean, we could talk about valuation, but that's always tricky. And in Superflex, obviously, he's still worth a lot. But the question I had, which I put on the sheet, was, are we starting Burrow right now? Like, are we nervous about that? Like, do you have a better option? You might. In Superflex, you probably do. But yeah, where are you at with this, Rocky?
I wanted to ask you, because you're the Bengals fan, what the hell is going on? Is this just the knee injury? Is there more to it than this?
It's a calf injury.
What is happening? I'm sorry, calf injury.
It's a calf injury. And then in the last game, it looked like he might have had an elbow injury, which is not good. They are officially, he is off the injury report for this week. The camp reports are all showing him running routes and actually running for first downs and being where he feels like he's 100% and where he needs to be for this team. So I'm excited, but I'm nervous and I'm anxious and I'm not sure what that means. Right. So I'm starting him everywhere because I feel like I can't not start him. Right. Like it's just like, he's the kind of quarterback that could put up 4 touchdowns easily. And he's got the weapons. You know, even if Higgins is out or limited in a sense, you still got Boyd, you still got Chase, of course. You got Mixon out of the backfield. So I'm starting him, but I'm nervous about it. What do you think, Drew?
Yeah, I'm actually, I started off starting him, but in a couple of leagues for Superflex, if Gino wasn't on bye this week, I'd be starting him over Burrow, I think. I did that last week, and I think I was okay with that. Yeah, it all depends on your options. I'm in another league where it's only him. It's him plus crap afterwards.
Yeah.
I think Jimmy G is my QB2 in that league, and he was out last week, so it had to be Burrow and a bunch of other skill players. But if I have the option and I have that luxury, then yeah, I mean, I'll look at the matchup a little bit more closely than I probably would have last year to see if I feel good about who my QB3 is and who they're going to. Whereas, yeah, I think last year there was no question he was probably QB1 for most teams.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, it's the injury that makes me worried, but also like coming back from this injury and like how bad he's looked has just been like a lot of gut punches to my team and my rosters. Like I'm 0-4 in one league and it's because of Burrow. I'm 2-2 in a couple leagues because of Burrow. You know, like he's just putting up 4 points is not enough for me. I'm not a fan. Yeah. What do you think of that, Maragi?
It probably will surprise neither of you to hear that I have 0 shares of Burrow.
He's too young. You like them old dudes, yeah,
and too expensive. Yes, I did actually have 1 share, and that league actually folded this offseason. But I think it's hard for me to say with confidence what I would do because I haven't actually had to make that decision. But I would have a really hard time benching him. Like I don't think if I had Burrow and Gino, I don't think I could bench him for Gino. I just feel like he can't keep playing like this unless he's seriously hurt. We have multiple years of evidence that he is much, much, much better than this.
Yes.
So I would just keep running him out there at least for the next couple weeks. I mean, maybe after 6-7 weeks, I finally say, okay, I can't do this anymore. But a month in, I'm still going to keep I would still kind of probably in almost any situation, probably just be auto starting him, assuming that he's going to become Joe Burrow again.
That's where I'm at too. And honestly, as a Bengals fan for a long time, even, but for the last few years, the team has started pretty badly out of the gate. I think Burrow is 1-7 over the first 2 weeks in the last 4 years, right? So he just does not win early on. And you may recall this even last year. There was some really that 4 interception game against the Steelers to open the season, right? Like there's just some really rocky starts, pardon the pun, for Joe Burrow. And I think that that's probably where we are. Is I think maybe not playing in the preseason and being a little, injured with the calf and everything kept him out of practice. Like there's just a lot of rust. So I'm hoping that rust is gone now because we really need them both for Bengals and for about 10 of my teams because I invested heavily in redraft and Burrow because, got to like my team. But with that, I think, are there any other injuries, any other things, or any other topics you guys want to talk about in general before we kind of get into our week 4 look back, or are we in a good spot, you think? Drew, I'll kick it to you first. Any other ideas?
No, I'm good.
And Rocky, any other injuries, any other players you want to get on just in general?
The only thing
we'll cover
in
some
my
more,
head is just because we've been gone a month, so we didn't talk about this. But are Dobbins and Chubb completely dead to you guys?
Oh, good question. No, but basically, I mean, like I got Chubb for a 25 third in 2 different leagues. Actually, I sent a 25 third for Nick Chubb, and I was happy to do it. I'm like, what's a third anyway? Especially 2 years from now. Like I don't care about 3rd round picks really ever. I like to get him as throw-ins for this exact kind of thing, right? So I traded for Chubb in those cases because I was like, if anybody can do it, it's going to be the machine that is Nick Chubb. Dobbins worries me a little bit more because Achilles are kind of a career killer. So I'm not sure I'm all the way done with Dobbins. I'm not dropping him. You know what I mean? Like I'm not getting rid of him. If somebody's willing to offer me a second for him, I'm smash accepting that, right? But I'm not throwing them away. No. What do you think, Drew?
I just wanted to say before Drew answers, I remember right after Dobbins' injury happened, I remember Scott Connor put out a tweet to take literally anything for him, and that he was even droppable. And then, but like if you can get a 4th, trade him for a 4th. I don't know that he was entirely wrong, and I love Dobbins, but Achilles and a guy who's been hurt over and over again, it's so scary. But Drew, I'm sorry, I'll let you talk now.
I'm not taking just anything, but I'm pretty close. It's like I don't know. At this point, would you rather have Trey Lance on your deep roster or one of these guys, and hope that they make something on your team in the next 24 months? So I would definitely take the picks if I could get a 3rd for them too. Andrew, you and I probably make a good pair there. I would send Nick Chubb. At that age, because I mean, the likelihood that he'll come back and be, as effective as he has been, it's tough. I mean, it's been a while since he had his. Is it the same knee again that he did? Is that what I saw?
It was.
He did in college, right? So, it's a tough position, and it's becoming a disposable position, right? So, I don't know that I have a whole lot of hope that either of those guys come back to do anything very meaningful. Maybe we're watching Kareem Hunt try to come back in Nick Chubb's stead. And, he's still, I've watched him get, picked up for a decent amount of fab, people trading, 3rds or a couple of 3rds to get him, and then all of a sudden dropping him 2 weeks later as well. So that position is just so tough to stay relevant that, I think I'm probably getting close to that point. I think I've got Dobbins on 2 teams. A 4th just feels insulting for a guy that was that talented, but at some point here, it's probably going to be realistic where, I'll be asking for a 3rd and I'll be happy to get it.
Yeah. What a difference a few weeks makes, right? Like just all that value just craters. I hate when that happens. On that note though, Rocky, you bring those 2 guys up. I mean, what are you doing with Aaron Rodgers as an old QB fan? I mean, like, is Aaron Rodgers ever going to be relevant again? Do you think he comes back? He's saying he's going to come back this season, which I just think is bonkers. But do you think he comes back next year? And then is he worth, starting in fantasy for you?
I think he probably. I originally thought he wasn't, but yeah, I mean, he's talking like he wants to come back. So I figured it at 40, you know, after that kind of season-ending injury, he was not going to come back, because he's already talked about retiring before he was ever a Jet. So I thought that this might just be the reason to hang it up. But am I? I mean, what do you? Are people going to? If I could get him for a third, would I do that? Probably, because
Yeah.
like thirds and
We just
fourths
talked
are
about it,
there.
right? Yeah.
Who cares? I'm not giving anything more than that, and I probably wouldn't. I do have him on a couple rosters. I haven't tried to sell him like super low just to get him off my and get anything for him. I figure at this point, I'd rather just let him die on my roster, or if he comes back, maybe I have a QB too. So, for a year. So I kind of think he's just a guy like I don't really have much interest in buying him unless someone wants to just throw him away because he's a 40-year-old quarterback, whether coming off a season or having a season-ending injury. But I'm not really pursuing him. Like I've always said this. I've said this a million times on this podcast on Trade Addicts. My whole thing is I like cheap quarterbacks, but I like cheap quarterbacks with upside. I don't think Aaron Rodgers has that much upside. He's, coming
That's a
back
good way to put it.
next year. I don't see him, coming back off the injury and then being like even a low end QB1. So,
Well, let's put it this way though: of the three, which would you rather have? Right, Rodgers, Chubb, or Dobbins? Which of those three? Which would you rather roster right now?
Oddly enough, I'd rather have the old running back because it was only an ACL, which was shocking to hear when you saw the injury because you figured it was multiple CLs that he was injuring there. So I do think there's a chance. I think there's a better chance Chubb is ever fantasy relevant again than Dobbins because, like you said, Achilles are killers. I guess Cam Akers had the Achilles and. Not that he's been super fantasy relevant since then, but he had some good games last year, and it's whatever reason I don't think it's because of the Achilles. For whatever reason, he fell out of favor in LA, and now he's in more of a 1B role. But I don't know that it's because of the Achilles. So maybe there's a shot with Dobbins. Maybe medical advancement has gotten far enough that Achilles aren't a career ender anymore. But I still need to see someone actually succeed with it. And even though he's succeeded health-wise since the Achilles, he came back relatively quickly and doesn't seem to be having a lot of re-injury. We haven't seen it on the field, like the production. So I need to see a success story before I'm ever going to buy into that.
That's fair. That's fair. Drew, what about you? Rodgers, Chubb, or Dobbins in a vacuum in a super flex league? Which one would you?
I would want Rodgers first. Probably Dobbins second and Chubb last.
Oh, interesting.
I think you go back a little further too, Rocky. Right? I think Dante Foreman was the first running back that we saw, make a return. He was
like years to come back.
It took him over 2 seasons, but then people started to pick him up, and then all of a sudden they thought, I was thought maybe Roshan would have to fight him this year for touches. But yeah, I mean it's progressive, right? And as much as we talk about medicine advancing, it is. There's so much that is different today. And then for Rodgers, I mean, which is it? Is it his left foot or his right Achilles that he injured? I think it was
his left, but I don't remember.
Which hopefully is that's not the one that he's. It's not the one he's pushing off of when he's throwing, and he's already an old quarterback, so he's not throwing 60-yard Hail Marys anymore. So, he can survive as a game manager. We saw Brady do it as far as, being able to read the game and be a step ahead mentally. And, he still has the muscle memory to make the throws. And we saw it in preseason, that first touchdown to Garrett Wilson. They got everybody excited. So I think there's a solid chance. And I don't know. I feel like I agree with you, Rocky. It seemed like a couple of years ago, he just didn't give a crap about anything and was ready to just say, screw y'all, let me walk away and you'll miss me when I'm gone. And it feels like he's hanging around a little bit more with maybe something to prove for some reason. So I think I would rather have, if all things being equal and if costs are similar, especially in a super flex, I'll take the old quarterback and see what happens.
I would just real quick. It's the left Achilles. I just looked up, and originally at first I couldn't find it. The first thing that came up is he's actually rehabbing his Achilles injury with J.K. Dobbins.
Yeah, they're rehabbing
I did not
together,
know
which I
that.
thought was a neat idea. Yeah,
Yeah,
I read that too. I'm with you though, Drew, on putting Rodgers first. I think in super flex, it's too scarce of a position, and I mean I think that's got the easiest return path to value, right? Like in my book, it just Rodgers feels like the easiest to get more than you're giving now. I would put Chubb over Dobbins, like I was saying before. I just think he's too much of a machine, but I don't think there's any wrong answer. And the fact that all three of these guys are worth a third, again, a month ago, we would have been like, you're crazy. That makes no sense, right?
Yep.
Especially Chubb, which is obviously the highest rated of all of them, or highest valued of all of them. So it's a shame that injuries have occurred. Obviously, we don't like that. We're not a fan of injuries, but it's a part of the game. And this game that we play it can sometimes be a brutal game. And hopefully they all come back and they all get to keep their careers going. But man, I'll tell you what, this has been a really rocky start again with the fun for the beginning of the year here. With that, though, let's pivot a little bit and zoom in a little bit to week 4. I know we talked a lot about a lot of players. I put some just generic stuff on the sheet here just to kind of get us talking. But I mean, was there anything from week 4 specifically that stood out to you, Rocky, or was it just kind of like, blending in with all the others since we didn't have a podcast to do ourselves? I'm just kind of curious what your thoughts are in general. I know you've done others.
Well, one thing I thought we could maybe talk about, I was curious your guys' take, is on the guy playing tonight, which it kind of he finally had a good game last week after a rough start to the season. Justin Fields,
Yeah.
DJ Moore as well, actually, but Justin Fields was the guy I was thinking about because it seemed like his value was falling. There's talk that maybe he doesn't make it. He doesn't play beyond this year or start beyond this year.
Yeah.
Which we did talk a little bit about that on Trade Addicts this past week. And I think he's a guy that even if the Bears are so awful that they get Caleb Williams, I think Fields will start somewhere. I don't think I don't think it'll be the Bears backup in that situation. And I think somebody would take a shot on him given the state of quarterbacking in the league. So
I completely agree. Yeah. And I think it's interesting too, though, because the Bears have the first 2 picks as of right now. They have the Panthers pick as well. So they've got two shots at that in theory. I'm with you, though. I think Fields is obviously it's a couple of games. He looked pretty bad. I get it. There's a lot of drama. Chicago's a bigger market, so there's a lot of drama there, and media always want to get their bites and all that. I think Fields is still got plenty left in the tank. He's a young kid. He's still figuring it out. I think, if anything, the Bears' offense needs some redo more than Fields does. So, yeah, I think Fields was definitely a surprise in week 4, and we're seeing it already as a surprise in week 5 a little bit with 3 touchdowns already in the first that game.
He's also got 8. I don't know how many of those were designed, but he's got 8 carries, and they hadn't been doing a lot of designed runs early. Again, I don't know. Like we're doing the podcast. I don't have the game on here while we're talking. I'm just looking at box scores. But I do wonder how much of that was designed. But even if it wasn't, I mean, we're seeing him run a little more than he had run in those first 2 games, and that's what made him so great for fantasy at the end of last year. I mean, he was looking pretty good as a passer, but he really came on as a rusher in the second half of the year. And part of that was design runs, which I think I would think with 8 runs, probably some of them
there were at least a couple that I remember seeing. I was like, oh, that's a design, like a draw run. Like he was literally, that was the plan. Are you shocked though, Drew, on Fields' start to the season? I guess shocked at how bad he was or shocked at how good he was in week 4? Which one?
I think we all expected it with that matchup, right? It was kind of the worst of the worst defenses going against each other with Denver. And, I think that was the sentiment was if Fields can't do it against a Denver defense that just gave up 70, then, then all hope will be lost. And thankfully for him and for a lot of us, he made good on that. And it seems like maybe something clicked. And, Washington is certainly no juggernaut this week. So maybe it is more matchup dependent. We just have to be a little bit more aware of that than we thought we had to be in the past. So certainly not surprised. I've liked Fields since he came out. I've been overweight on Fields in my team. So I actually traded a couple of times to get him off my rosters last year, which I felt pretty good about kind of balancing that out. And I was actually looking to try to make a couple more moves earlier on this year. And, maybe now is really the time to do it. I've had some talks with a couple guys around, swapping Fields for Lamar in a couple leagues, trying to figure out what the gap is there. But yeah, I don't think the talent that, he has. I don't think I'm surprised that he was able to do it. It was just really good to see him do it in a situation where you expect him to.
Real quick, I have the DLF ADP up, which is from September, so it's not fully really up to date in season. But he was, when they finished that, at QB8 still. I'm curious how far he's fallen. QB9 is Anthony Richardson. You both taking Richardson over Fields?
I am, yeah.
I think so, right? Tua. Tua's a QB10.
I probably still take Tua over. I mean, I think that's getting close, though. Like, I could flip a coin on that one, but I think Tua is just hitting his stride right now. I think that offense is just prime for him. So I take Tua. What do you think, Drew? Are you on Tua too?
Yeah, I mean, there's enough upside because of his weapons. He doesn't have to do anything else special. I think a lot of what we thought about Burrow too, right? We know Burrow's not going to run for more than 15 yards a game, but when you've got Chase and Higgins at your disposal, you know that there's, you can break it open at any point.
And this might be where the line starts to come. QB11, Deshaun Watson.
Oh, give me Fields over Watson. It's not even that the off the field stuff is obviously one thing with Watson. I'm not a huge fan of having someone like that on my roster. I've said this before, but he's looked really bad this year, if not worse than Fields in my mind. And he didn't even play last week, which I think was an interesting twist that they gave him the option and he opted not to play. I mean, that's just a bad look.
Weird. Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like he's mentally checked out or just had a lot going on, which is something I've been talking about for what feels like the last few years, even like coming back after that. And then, getting to a new team and then all the offseason stuff and like being suspended for some games and like just all that just going to weigh on you. Right. And I think Watson is a great talent, or at least was. It just doesn't look like it. So yeah, I'm taking Fields there.
You agree? Yeah, and then Dak's below him. I'm easily taking Fields over Dak. So
easily, yeah.
That still puts him at like QB11 because I don't think anybody ahead of him in this. Trevor Lawrence, I assume you're taking over Justin Fields still.
Yeah, I still am. Yeah.
Drew's saying no, or Drew's saying I'm not sure.
I mean, I prefer Fields.
Okay.
So it still puts him in that 10-11 range. I think everybody else we would all probably Lamar, Burrow, Herbert. That would be the next.
All those guys are over.
Yeah.
Well, so on that note too, though, one of the other surprises that I was thinking about for this segment here was Cole Kmet kind of coming out of nowhere, right? And he obviously has another touchdown tonight so far too. But there were a lot of people that were expecting this Bears offense to be very run heavy. They went out and got Roshan Johnson in the draft. They got Khalil Herbert. They got Justin Fields, right? That's 3 running backs that can just dominate on the ground. They got DJ Moore, which obviously is a great presence on the outside, but it was sort of like, well, Cole Kmet's probably not going to do anything. And here he is like tight end 4 or something like that on the season. You know what I mean? Like that's not what we expected. And again, a lot of that is bolstered by touchdowns, but that's kind of what tight end is. You know what I mean? Like that's the only real way you get into that top 5 of tight ends is just getting touchdowns. We got another one this week. So that's surprising in a positive way. So, I mean, again, it's sort of related, right? And DJ Moore, even you said it too, Rocky, like that's a surprise. And again, not even counting tonight's dominant performance, right? Like there's just a lot of fun things in this Bears offense. And I'll tell you what, as a Bears fan, when I lived in Chicago and a Cincinnati Bengals fan from my time here, it's rough seeing the Bears 0-4 doing much better than the Bengals at 1-3. Like as an offense, their team seems to be able to move the ball way better than the Bengals right now, which is not at all what I expected. So yeah, it's been an interesting time. Let's pivot ahead a little bit. Let's kind of keep this moving and look forward to week 5. What are we looking ahead to week 5 for? Obviously, we've got some teams on a bye. We've got the Browns, Chargers, Seahawks, and Buccaneers, our first buys of the season. That could cause some interesting, options in a sense. And like, well, what do we do with these guys? What do we do with these players? But Drew, I'll kick it to you first. Is there anything you're looking forward to seeing or anything you're curious about as week 5 starts to open up here?
Yeah. Talked about it with Bill on Timeline a little bit last night. I am really curious to see how long CJ Stroud continues this streak of really composed start to the career, to the season. Blew the passes without an interception as a rookie out of the water last week. 150 some odd passes without throwing a pick at this point, with lackluster weapons around him. So that's probably what I'm watching there. And speaking of Burrow, and we talked about it last night, looking at, is it time to try to make some moves like a Burrow for a Stroud plus maybe if you can still get that? Because Stroud's another one where, I'm curious what you guys think between, because that September ADP, I'm sure Stroud was much lower than Fields at that point. Where's that gap now for you guys between those two?
Yeah, he was all the way.
It's real close.
19.
Yeah, Stroud has moved way up to that QB 12 range for me. I'd rather have Stroud over Dak. I'd rather have Stroud over Deshaun Watson, like I was talking about before. Like he and Fields are right back to back for me right now in my mind, like in that back end QB1 kind of range. Yeah, I mean Stroud's just hasn't had any bad things on his roster, on his resume. Like he's just getting it done with the team that I did not think could get it done. So like that's impressive to me.
I'm right there with Andrew, and I'm loving seeing it too because I had him as my QB1 in rookie drafts, just because I thought he was the best passer. I know Richardson has the rushing upside, but and he's looked better in his first couple of games than I thought he would, even a little bit as a passer. But Stroud has just been amazing, maybe strong, but very, very good. Like he has 0 interceptions in his first 4 games for a rookie, which is kind of insane. Yeah. And I saw he's on pace, not that he's necessarily going to keep this up, but he's on pace for about 5,100 yards. So he's been really, really good to start the season. And again, with no real amazing weapons, it's Nico Collins and Tank Dell and Robert Woods and he's doing this. And so, yeah, I mean, to me, I'm right with you. I'd put him right in the same range as Fields at this point. He looks better as a passer than Fields really has probably since he came into the league. So up until maybe these last couple of games, and even these last couple, he hasn't been crazy amazing. Like he's like 13 for 23 tonight, but he's got some big plays and stuff like that Fields does. So So yeah, I would have him right there, back end QB1. I would also have him above. I get the same exact range. I would probably still have him below Tua, but above Watson, above Dak, and guys like that.
Yep, that feels about right for me. And honestly, that's the other thing I'm looking forward to seeing if Nico Collins can keep this up. Like Nico Collins has just come out of nowhere. I made a trade again in that same 1 QB league I was talking about before, where I traded, I think it was Nico Collins and Samaje Perine for Khalil Herbert. Because I really wanted to shore up my RB2 slot. I'm like, I think I had Kamara and I have Eckler. Like I've got older guys that are just not going to play and have been injured. So I'm like, after week 1, I'm like, let me trade on this Nico Collins thing. And man, that's a terrible trade looking back on it. Like, God, I wish I would have had Collins. Like I would have won a couple weeks because of that. You can't look at it, but I always look at it.
Yeah, it's hard not to.
Real quick, this is redraft, my home redraft league that I've been in for like 20 years with mostly the same group of guys. But this may be the best waiver wire week in history. Before week 1, they don't let us do first come first serve for some reason. You get a waiver run, and then they don't get to do another. You don't do first come first serve until after week 1. Because I had Kelsey on that team, I had to drop Nico Collins to pick up Gerald Everett to sub for Travis Kelsey, and then nobody picks him up after week 1, and somebody drops Achane after week 1. And in first come, first serve, I got Nico Collins and Achane. And now I have both on my team.
Phenomenal.
Yeah. I paid $1 for each of them. I'm just too lazy, I guess, to put it in on the waiver wire to get Nico back. And at that point, Achane hadn't done anything yet, but I was just picking it up as a speculation type thing. And
I drafted Achane.
Yeah.
Yeah, I drafted Achane, and then I got Puka after week 1 on waivers, and I put in like what I thought was like a low bid. It's week 1. I'm not going to blow my whole fab in 1 week. I want to kind of save a little. I like to have a little bit as the season goes on. And I got him for like 24 out of 100 or something like that. And I was just like, really? Okay. And then I've just been riding him in Achane the last 2 weeks, which has been great.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what's wild about this season is that Achane, I'm very curious to see what happens with him. That's another terrific look ahead because week 5, week 6, we're going to start to see what teams really are. And kind of the second quarter of the season starts. You're going to start to see what teams are making moves and are going to start to like really put their foot on the throat, so to speak, and just kind of put the gas pedal to the floor and just like, let's go. We saw Miami obviously scoring 70 points, 700 offensive yards, like just a bonkersville type of thing. And that was with Mostert and Achane both kind of going nuts. And Tyreek, of course, like 10 touchdowns, what you expect. But I mean, can that hold up? I mean, I know there's a lot of people I've seen even on Twitter and on X or whatever that have Achane as like a top 5 dynasty running back. And I'm like, well, I don't know about that. Like, hang on now. Like, that seems a little early, but we were all like very excited to see what this offense was going to do with the running back. I mean, I don't know if I'm going that crazy, but maybe to kind of tie it back in, which would you rather have in dynasty right now, Achane or Jonathan Taylor? I mean, it's Taylor for me, but it's worth thinking about. Am I wrong?
That's kind of the point of it, is like the running back position is just such a mess in dynasty. Like even all the young guys, Breece Hall's coming off a major injury. Kenneth Walker had Zach Charbonnet drafted there, so that lowered his value. Like there's no, it's like, you know, CMC, who's old, you know, quote unquote old, and then he's the one guy you can depend on, and then everybody else is just like, what are we doing with them? You know what I mean? So it's just kind of a whole hodgepodge mess of a situation at running back in dynasty.
Yeah, there used to be like a clear-cut tier, and I just don't know if I can see that anymore. But Drew, what are your thoughts on Achane and kind of in dynasty versus Taylor? Even just what are your thoughts in general on that?
Man, if I can, depending on if I can get something back with him for Jonathan Taylor, and you know, have a little bit more certainty there, I would be open to it. I don't know that I'm ready to dub him in that tier yet of, because I mean at this point, what is it? It's McCaffrey right now and the polar opposite, Bijan Robinson, right? Those are your top 2 running backs.
Yeah, easily.
You know, if you want to have those 2, and then after that, it's this cluster of it could be. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing Breece Hall. Apparently, with no limits this week, they're just going to feed him like normal. So, and he has a good matchup. So I'm hoping that, you know, he takes advantage of that. But you've got another 3, 4, 5. So I don't know. I suppose I can see the argument for him being up there based on, you know, what he's done already, and you know, he's a rookie, so he's in a good situation. Which again, that offense is just so they can flex to whatever the defense gives them, and that's the tough part. I think being a coordinator against them is you can't afford to give them anything because they've got somebody that can take advantage of you, whatever that is. I don't know if I could get a little bit back. I don't know how much I would need, but I know he's playing this week. We talked about it at the beginning of the show. We don't know how much, or if at all, if Taylor's going to play this week or how many games. So I think that's definitely intriguing if you can get something back with him to, you know, age down a little bit as well.
Yeah,
I
like that too, because you're hitting the nail on the head for what makes me think they're kind of similar in a way, because Taylor's future is very uncertain. Right, you don't quite even know what team he's going to be on at the end of this season, let alone next year. Right, we just don't know where he's going to be. Now, we're pretty certain he's going to play somewhere. Like, I think we're all on the same page. He's not going to sit out.
Mm-hmm.
But Achane is going to be on this offense with Tua and Tyreek for the next 2 years, most likely as a rookie. And Mostert's not getting any younger. It's going to be entirely his backfield. So the future is brighter in my mind. It's more certain. It's more of an upside thing, right? Taylor could get traded to some other team where he doesn't get a lot of action, or he's behind someone else, or who knows, right? So like there's just that uncertainty in the future that makes it really, really wild. And that's what I love about this time of year, is because even after 4 weeks, we've seen a lot of valuations just go all over the place. Not even because of injury, just because of players playing out of their minds, right? I love that. So with that, I guess I want to keep us moving here. So anything else to talk about in week 5, or do you feel like we've covered? I mean, again, real brief. We're just keeping this light.
Yep, I think we're good.
Sounds good. All right. So then there was only one trade in the last month in any of the Dynasty Junkies leagues. So that was kind of nice. And it was one that I made, which I was pretty happy about. I'm pretty sure it was before week 2 or 3, where we had, I was trading away pretty much a second and Jalen Tolbert in a third. So pretty much a second is the best asset in that group for David Montgomery. And this is in Dynasty Junkies 2. I made the trade with the team name now Demolition in Progress. I forget what the team name was before that, but obviously this is a rebuilding team. He did not want David Montgomery, but I was blessed and lucky enough to have David Montgomery, the Lions running back, in that big week he had last week. But I guess, Rocky, just out of curiosity, which would you rather have in Dynasty, David Montgomery or a 2024 second?
Yeah, give me Montgomery. The right. Volume he's getting, unfortunately, way too much for us Jahmyr Gibbs managers and fans. I mean, they seem to love him there. He's going to be the goal line. He's going to be the Jamal Williams type this year, plus get probably more carries than even Williams did last year. And that offense looks pretty good. So I would easily pay a second for David Montgomery on a contending team.
Yeah, I was happy to do it too. And obviously it's looked good in the last couple of weeks. Drew, you on the same page?
Yeah. I mean, he's certainly paid off. And I think I sat him on maybe 2 rosters because I wasn't sure. But every place that I had to play him, I was glad that my team was bad enough that he had to be my running back that week.
That's right. When you're like, well, I got lucky. I guess I'll put him in there and, it paid off. How about that? I love when that happens. Yeah. The other thing I wanted to update in relation to our leagues was we're pretty much all of us are right in the middle. And I think that's the theme I'm noticing in almost every one of my leagues. I'm like 2-2 or 3-1, 1-3. Like I've got like just a couple of points away from being exactly even. The matchups have been crazy. The games have been crazy. The chaos is here. We're in full chaos mode. It happens every year. I say it literally every year. This year is crazier than any year I've ever seen. I say it every year, so that can't be true, right? But in DJ1, we're 3-3 because we've had some double headers. DJ2, Rocky and Scott are 2-2, and I'm 3-1. So again, we're right in the middle. And then DJ3, we're 2-2 with 5 victory points there. So like we're kind of right in the hunt and all of that. So again, appreciate all you guys that are playing in those leagues with us, and hopefully we can win one of them. That'd be kind of nice. But right now we're not really all the way contending, but we'll get there. With that though, we're going to get into our final segment of the evening. And again, it's been too long. I feel like I have to play it because I haven't heard his voice.
Find me a trade.
Thank you, Mr. Brian Haar. That's right. This is time for Find Me a Trade. I'm going to talk about the team a little bit and then pull it up while you get into the thoughts, Rocky, if you want to do it that way. But this is submitted by Jared. We've actually done one of his teams before. It's in the Foot Clan Dynasty beta, which I'm guessing is related to the fantasy footballers because their Foot Clan is kind of the fans of that. Dynasty beta makes me think it's like one of their earlier betas that maybe they were doing as a Foot Clan thing. I'm not sure. But this is a 1 QB league, which I know we're a Superflex show. We're pretty much all the way Superflex here. But this is a 1 QB, 12-team PPR half tight end premium. So 1.5 tight end receptions there. It is 1 QB, 2 running back, 2 receiver, tight end, and 3 flex. So you do start 10. And then, Rocky, if you want to read some of his notes here while I get the screen shared, that'd be great.
Yeah, so Jared said, I assume this first part is about his team.
Correct. Yes.
But he says, honestly, the team is win now, and he's been skating by because he's had some injuries. But he says he really wants us to talk about he feels good about his team, but he'd love to hear the thoughts of his brother's team, who's also in the league, who is 0-4 and in 12th place, but has won 3 straight titles and says he's just had some really bad scoring luck in matches.
Yeah, I wasn't going to put that in there, but I'm like, you know what? That could be an interesting topic of discussion. We'll get into that after the trade because I do want to talk a little bit about that because I've got my own personal things there. But you can kind of, I don't know if you can see it on the screen. I pulled it up here. So Jared's team, he's got Ryan Tannehill, Lamar Jackson, Justin Fields. Again, in 1 QB, he's got 3 QBs. That seems a little heavy to me, but I get it. Running back, he's got Kenny McIntosh, Deonta Foreman, Samaje Perine, Saquon Barkley, Rashad Penny, Miles Sanders, Jonathan Taylor, who we talked about, Zach Moss, Savon Ahmed, Rico Dowdle, Joshua Kelly, and Israel Abanikanda. A lot of players there. Some really good names with Taylor, Barkley, maybe Sanders you could see as a starter too. I don't mind that. Zach Moss has done well so far this year with Taylor out. Receivers, he's got Nico Collins, Cooper Kupp, Zay Jones, Garrett Wilson, Jordan Addison, Rashad Bateman. So some good names there at receiver. Tight end, the one and only Travis Kelce, and then Logan Thomas, Hunter Henry, and Cole Turner. He does not have his own 24 first. He doesn't have any 24 first, but he does have 2 24 seconds, 2 24 fourths, and a 24 fifth, along with a full battery of picks in 25 and 26. So I had mine. I'll kind of get into it because I already talked about it. But Rocky, what are your thoughts? I guess you got something you want to say?
I was just going to say, I apparently misunderstood what we were being asked for because I found it to trade for his brother's team. So.
Perfect. No, that's good. Hold on to that one. I'm going to do a trade for this team because this is Jared's team that we're supposed to find a trade for, but we can do both. This is good. This is a twofer. Jared's getting a double dip, but my trade was with Maverick with a 1, was to send Justin Fields, who is having a great game tonight. And you can't do it now because he's already played. But send Justin Fields in a 1 QB league for Daniel Jones or Mac Jones and a second. And the thinking here is I'm probably starting Lamar Jackson week in and week out. I don't think other than a bye, other than an injury, I'm not going to have a debate on whether or not I start Lamar Jackson. He's going to start for me every week. And then you've got Ryan Tannehill as a backup too. I feel like Fields, you might be able to get some after his week 4 performance, and now after his week 5 performance that we're seeing so far pretty well. I think you might be able to trade high on that. And in one QB, I don't mind getting another QB and a second round pick, which you might be able to combine together to get a first. But Rocky, what was your thought on this trade since you didn't even look at this team?
Exactly. But no, just since you just went over everything, the roster, and we went over his thoughts and all that. I think that's fine. Again, in one QB, I obviously like Fields a lot more than those two guys, but one QB quarterback doesn't matter as much, and he has Lamar, like you said. So I'll take the second. I probably would rather. Both have been pretty bad this year, but I would probably take Daniel Jones over Mac Jones. I think if they can ever get that offensive line straightened out, you can get more fantasy production from Daniel Jones than you're ever going to get from Mac Jones. And I don't think either is guaranteed a super long-term career at this point. So I would take the Daniel Jones over Mac, but the second is kind of the big thing there. So I think it's perfectly fine. Yeah.
And to be honest with you too, I was wondering, do you think you could get a first? Do you think you could send Fields to a team that needs a QB and get a mid to late first? Do you think that'd be possible, or is that asking too much?
I think he might. I mean, maybe Drew can chime in. I think he might, at the very least, need some more.
Again, it's one QB, so your late firsts
games
aren't great, right? One QB, your late firsts are like Henry Miller, like we were just talking about. Your firsts aren't that much of a deal anymore.
But my experience is a lot of people don't want to give up a first for a quarterback and one QB unless they're in that very, very
Lamar Jackson,
tier.
for instance. Yeah. What do you think, Drew?
It's interesting to think about his team as a win now, and I'm also looking at settings here. It's a start 9, so you want to consolidate your talent there, right? It's not like you're looking for a lot of depth in 12 team. You're basically.
10. I don't know why it says 9, but no, it's start 10. Sorry.
Oh, is it start 10? Okay.
It says 9 on the photo.
I know it says 9, but if you count the positions.
Yeah, well, that factored into my trades.
Sorry, no, it is 9. It is 9. It is 9. I can't count.
So
9.
with that, I'd be looking. I'd be looking to see if you can maybe. He has Jonathan Taylor, who we talked about all night as being a little bit uncertain. But after this week, maybe if he plays, or now that he's coming back, if there's a little bit more hype there, I think I'm looking at his wide receivers, and he's got some good names. Cooper Kupp has got to come back too. So he's getting some surprise production out of Nico Collins. Garrett Wilson, of course, being limited now without Rodgers there. And Jordan Addison, he just laid a dud right this last week, so still kind of finding his place in that offense and. As a rookie, which is a lot to ask. So I'm looking at I was looking for guys like a Tyreek or a Devontae Adams and see if those teams might be a viable trade partner. And the tough part is because Taylor is getting older for a running back. I don't know that you feel a whole lot better if I'm a team trying to get rid of a Devontae Adams or Tyreek. I'm probably trying to rebuild myself. So I think you might have to do a couple trades to get to them. You might need to take, like you said. Take Justin Fields and get a lower end QB, get another second, and start packaging some picks to get to the player that you really want to add if you're going to win now. We said it before. I don't have any single QB teams left to really give a whole lot of experience from this. So, but that's kind of the theme of what I'd be looking for his team is I'd want to consolidate. I'd be fine having Saquon and Miles Sanders, and then Zach Moss has been surprisingly productive, so that's a nice little hedge if Jonathan Taylor either doesn't play as much or goes to a different team. You still have starters there with a stud in Saquon, hopefully when he gets back soon. And then, assuming Cooper Kupp comes back healthy, if Nico Collins continues, and then if you can add a guy like a Tyreek or a Devontae Adams, who just seem to produce week in and week out, kind of make that push for this season.
Yeah, no, I like it. I think Taylor is probably not a bad idea. And if you can get a pivot to a receiver, I think is a smart move too. I like where your head's at on that. Rocky, you on the same page?
Yeah, and I agree, and that's actually going to factor in to my trade that I wasn't supposed to do.
Perfect pivot
for his
Go for
brother. But I definitely the start 9 stuck out to me, and it was kind of an issue where I wanted to tear up. I guess I'll run down the significant players real quick because we've never actually done two different teams and one find me a trade before.
That's right.
So his brother has a really, if you just like coming into the season, this looks like an amazing team to me, and it's 0-4. But you can kind of understand when you hear some of the underperformers. A couple guys have been hurt. He's got Kamara who's been suspended, but Kirk Cousins, Justin Herbert, a quarterback, and 1 QB is great. Alvin Kamara, James Conner, J.K. Dobbins, Breece Hall, Ramondre Stevenson are the guys that stick out at running back.
Solid running back room, though.
Yes.
Like, that's a good group. It just none of them.
And then it gets better at receiver.
Yes, it
Keenan
does.
Allen, Chris Godwin, T. Higgins, Jalen Waddle, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Drake London, as well as some from filler bench guys.
Yeah.
And then at tight end, Mark Andrews and Njoku are the two main guys. And he has his first for the next 2 years and an extra 25. So I thought we were finding a trade for this team.
No, that's fine. I wanted to talk about it. This is perfect. What was the trade you found for this team? Because I want to talk more about it, but I'm curious to your trade first.
I did put on here. So my real answer is give it a couple weeks at least, because that is a really good team. So it's kind of crazy they're on 4, but like I said, Waddle's underproduced and Breece Hall's been hurt. Well, not hurt, but coming back from the injury. T. Higgins has had issues because of the whole Bengals situation. So there's a lot of, you can see a lot of the reasons why he may have been 0-4. And he still does have some good scorers on there, but maybe, like I think his brother said, he had some bad scoring luck too. So maybe he faced the top team that week or whatever when he did do well. But I said, if he wants to make a trade, let's go big. And with only 9 starters, I'm looking to level up as much as possible at each starting position. So I came up with trading Drake London, T. Higgins, and a 25 first to actually the team you traded to for his brother, to Maverick for Justin Jefferson. And Maverick has a weird team in that I don't think he's trying. I'm not even sure if he's just trying to contend or not. He does have a few old guys sprinkled in there. It's mostly young, though. He has Jefferson and Chase at wide receiver, but like nothing else significant. So, and having Chase, maybe he feels more of the ability to trade Jefferson since he's got the like top 2 young receivers in the league. So, and he could use, he's getting 2 good young receivers back in theory if Arthur Smith ever leaves and the passing game opens up there. So, and like I said, looking at his roster, I don't think he's necessarily winning now. We don't have standings on this sheet. So I'm not sure how good he's doing, but he's got Daniel Jones and Mac Jones, as we talked about, which is not great. And a lot of his running backs are so. He does have Achane, who's obviously come on and we talked about, and Cook, who's pretty good. But Jacobs underperformed early.
Real quick, because I thought you'd find this interesting. He did actually send the standings, or at least some of the standings. I don't have all of them, but I don't have the top 3, and Maverick is in the top 3. And I'm not sure how. Because honestly, like Chase has had a really rough year. I don't know how.
It's got to be matchups.
Exactly. And that's where I feel really bad for this.
Even if he is in the top 3, again, he may not want to do it because Higgins and London have been underperforming, but he could still use more receiver depth. He has no first in 24 or 25. So I guess it depends on how all in he is on this top 3 start. Given his roster, which is only, in my opinion, only so.
To go back to your trade though, like London, Higgins, and a 25 first for Jefferson feels like a pretty fair trade for both sides.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
I like that a lot. I think especially if you do have Chase, that fills out your roster a little bit. Your starting lineup gets a little bit easier to set every week. Like it's not that more. Who am I going to play, Tutu Atwell or John Mechie in my wide receiver 2 slot? I get your wide receiver 3 or flex. Like it just gets brutal. So I thought that was pretty nice. And the other thing, which go ahead.
I was just going to say, and Jared's brother would then have Jefferson, Waddle, Amon-Ra, Keenan, and Chris Godwin. So he's still fine.
He's still fine. I agree. The other thing I thought was interesting though is the P FIFA 01 is the brothers team here to Jared, and he's 0-4, but he's got like one of the top points for, and by far like one of the top points against. So it is literally just matchups. And I think sometimes this is maybe a good lesson to take from this too, is that sometimes you don't have to make a move unless it makes your team dramatically better. 0-4 can feel like you're behind the 8 ball, that you have no chance. We've all seen that not be true. 0-4 is not 0-6. 0-4 is not 0-8. Like, you can still figure things out, right? I think that it's probably really bad because he's won the last 3 years and his team looks like it should win. Like, this is a very good team. I feel for the guy. You know what I mean? Like, I feel for the guy. That's a brutal start with a team that is that good. It's just no other way around.
It's not only really
this is
good.
Why,
go ahead.
This is why I love leagues where the last playoff spot is reserved for the high scorer that didn't make it on standings, right? So I think that's where, this league, if I'm the league mates, I'm saying, please don't do that yet, because I don't want to face this team in 3 or 4 weeks or 6 weeks. And I also wonder too, like, how much of it is just, it's almost like an overwhelming decision process with so many choices with so few roster spots. So can he almost help himself out by consolidating a little bit?
I was going to say the same thing. Yep.
You have a better chance to get the right decision each week, because maybe a couple of these losses were by just a couple points because, you
started Higgins. Started Drake. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So
I'm with you. And that was actually going to be one of my other pivots on this team, is that with the quarterback room in one QB league anyway of Herbert and Cousins, you're set. I love that quarterback room. You don't need anything else there. At tight end, you've got Mark Andrews. That's a set it and forget it tight end. Like, you don't need to worry. I mean, yeah, he's going to have up and down weeks, and obviously he's had some down weeks, but you're not going to be worried about Mark Andrews. Running back, you've got a solid room, even with the injury. Alvin Kamara coming back, I think, helps your team out. Connor, I think, is okay. Matt Breida has been okay, serviceable, manageable. Like, so you've got a lot of really good players that just haven't hit their stride. So I actually really like your logic too, Rocky, of like, don't mess this up. You know what I mean? Like, unless it significantly makes your team better, which I totally agree with your logic there, Drew, of like combining some of these assets, removing some of that decision-making might at least make you feel better. Even if you lose in week 5, you're at least like, at least I started the right guys, like there was no question this time. So I think that's why I love this trade, Rocky, and why I'm glad we got into it. And I think it's nice of us to give Jared a twofer, because we've already done one of his teams anyway. So hopefully, Jared, you can get back to us with you or your brother. Let us know how this goes. Let us know if you can pull any of these trades off. Hopefully we gave you some good ideas and some good advice to maybe make your season a little less annoying. But with that, I think we've covered it. Anything else you guys want to get into as the long month off has come to an end and we're ready to hit the ground running?
No, I guess just glad to be back, and we should be back every week going forward. So everybody, hopefully you're listening to this and keep tuning in. We'll be popping up in your feed regularly again.
That's right. Yeah, it's nice to have some time off. And again, Drew, thanks for joining us. I look forward to chatting it up with you here on Thursdays, not just on Timeline, as I've done a couple times. So it'll be nice to have you on the show and have another opinion, another voice, and another, I don't know, a way to argue. I think argue is maybe not the right word. A way to discuss. You and Debate. I had a couple different things. Like we said earlier, like we don't always agree. That makes for good radio. You know what I mean? Like, we can't always agree. And I'm glad to have someone on this that can teach me something too and help me get better at this fun game that we play. So with that, we're going to kick it out of here. Follow us at Dynasty Junkies on X. I'm going to say it that way, I guess. Definitely subscribe, rate, review to the
Twitter.
It's still, I know we're old. It's Twitter. I'm going to call it Twitter. But subscribe, rate, review. Follow us on YouTube at the DAP Network, Dynasty Addicts Podcast Network, or the DAP Network, if you will, and we do. But definitely follow us too. Rocky at Dynasty FF Addict, Drew at DR_PRA, and myself at Andrew Hall FF. But with that, keep submitting your FMATs. We're back. Let's do this. And everybody have a great rest of the season. Let's do it.